Okay, that's the time to go. So, good afternoon, guys. My name is Erich Bühler. I'm the author of the book Leading Exponential Change, which is available in English, the original version, Spanish, and recently in Portuguese. I was last week in Brazil presenting the book in Portuguese, and it was a fantastic experience. Brazil is always good fun. I'm originally from Uruguay. I'm from Latin America, and I've been living all around the world. I'm based now in Valencia, in Spain. It's an ugly place, sunny, you know, the beach nearby. And I live there part of the year. I'm mostly based in Europe. And most of my time, I'm helping Agile coaches, helping organizations around the world, helping banks, and especially working with what I call transformation agents, people who want to make a change in the organization. When I started writing the book, the first thing I saw is that people struggle in the company because of many things. Every country I go, they say the same thing. They say, Eric, people do not want to change in this country. Have you heard that? Yeah? You know, there are hierarchies here. We can't change. This is very difficult. So what I did is I wrote a book. I include plenty of new ideas based on neuroscience of how to speed up change, especially in agile organizations who want to be agile. And I'm going to be talking about this today. So you can't see that, but it says leading exponential change. That's the hashtag. If you want to take any picture or anything, just share it with the community using the hashtag leading exponential change, so other people around the world are going to see that. And today, I'm going to talk about expanding Agile to the rest of the organization. If you couldn't even expand it outside your team, don't worry. I'm going to explain to you how to do it. And I'm going to be talking also about the different types of change you can use in your organization. And I'm going to be a little bit extreme with what I'm going to be explaining to you today. And also, I'm going to explain to you the differences between Agile and business agility or enterprise agility so you understand how to do it. But the objective of this presentation today is that you have tools to use in your company to change the organization faster. Okay, hopefully, finger crossed, I'm going to help you today. So last time I've been to Dubai, it was in 2008. I was living in London at that time. I decided to cross the desert on my bicycle. So I brought my bicycle here to Dubai, and I was 2 weeks crossing all the desert, going from here to Oman. Yeah, it was very tough, especially one day I didn't have any place where to sleep, and that was tough. Yeah? But I said the hardest part was trying to exit in Dubai, just cycling in the middle of I think there was like 5 or 6 lanes, and I was cycling there in the middle. That was the most dangerous part, and that's what I have done a long time ago. I was 2 weeks. I was very fit and young. I didn't spend that much money in anti-wrinkles cream. And I said, life is like riding a bicycle. Yeah? You have to keep moving in order to keep the balance. Yeah? Albert Einstein, someone said he said that in a different way, but that's basically the idea. Let me tell you what happened in 2 years. I have my house in Valencia, as they said in Spain. And at that point in time, the government decided to build roads, cycleways all around the city. So the government decided to invest a lot of money on these cycle lanes. Valencia is mostly flat, and it's a small city, 1.5 million, so you can cycle everywhere. So at that point, some client called me New Zealand, so I left to New Zealand. And when I came back 7 or 8 months after, I was helping a bank in New Zealand. I found these scooters everywhere, these motorbikes, electric motorbikes everywhere. They just have an application. You just locate a scooter, you use it, and then you leave it wherever you want. Right? 22 seconds per minute. I said, that's fantastic. I don't have a car. I don't want to have a car. The city is small. I don't need a car. I travel most of the time. So let's use them. But at the end of the month, I saw that it was bloody expensive, 22 seconds. You know, you were crossing just red lights, just trying to speed up, just not to spend that much money. It was kind of expensive. Then we had this we had all around the city these scooters. It's the same idea. You just locate one, you take it, you use it, you leave it. I said, OK, that's fine, medium range distances. OK. So what happened after, 2 months after, was this. We have a flat rate. So you pay $10 a month, and then you can use the motorbikes as much as you want. In fact, what I do is just park the motorbike nearby. I have lunch, and then I take the bike again, and I use it the whole day. And what happened after? Well, that was probably in 4, 5 months, 7 months. So a lot of changes. And the government kept building these cycle lanes because they believed at the point they started building them, they believed that the electric bicycle could be the future. But as you can see that it's not, right? So everything changed in just a few months. And then I read this article on BBC. A couple of guys, they developed an autonomous taxi, and it's an electric taxi. And the cost of the trip is 90% cheaper than the one you are paying today in a standard taxi. So imagine you pay, I don't know, $10, you're going to pay $1. Why? Because there is no driver, and second, because it's electric. And an electric car has 20 moving parts instead of 2,000, well, the modern cars are 20,000 moving parts. So it's so cheap to maintain it. And all of this happened in a year. So what's happening? And this is affecting your companies. And this is why we need business agility, right? This is from a guy called Erich R. He basically says that every process we digitalized is going to be accelerated. So everything you move to a computer, a process in your company is going to be accelerated, which means that we are around here. We have probably the brain of a spider in a computer, yeah? But in a few years, it's going to be a monkey, then a human, and then the power of the whole human beings around the world. So every time you move something there, then it's going to accelerate more and more and more, and that's going to generate more disruptions, right? I'm going to tell you something. Can you recognize any of these guys from the Scrum community? Yeah? Who is there? OK, Jeff Sutherland is there, and this is the only real person. The other picture were generated by this person does not exist. It's a website which was launched probably a month and a half ago. It uses artificial intelligence to create faces. So none of these people exist, right? Well, as far as you know. Well, you could argue that it's similar to someone you know. But none of these people exist or have been generated by artificial intelligence, right? And you can access this website anytime you access the website to generate a new face, right? So be careful with your friends in Facebook. So why happening? Let me try to explain to you why. And the most important thing is that if you went to work every single day and everything changed, what's going to happen now is that things are going to change faster and faster and faster. So imagine you go back home, and then you find that you live in a different place. You have a different wife and husband. Well, some of you are going to be happy about this. Yeah. And then you have a different, you have 2 kids, or 3 or 5, and you didn't know. And every time you go back home, the situation is different. How good do you feel about it? It's crazy, right? So I'm going to show you later that when this kind of thing happen, hopefully it would not happen to you, some area of the brain is activated, and it's the same area that is activated when you are exposed to enterprise change or change in the organization, right? And I'm going to show you some techniques. So why is happening this change? Well, the first one is the Moore's law. We know this for a long time. It says that approximately every 18 months, the power of the microprocessor, the power of a computer multiplies. So if you have a computer today, in 18 months, it's going to double the power, right? But that has been there for a long time. The second is companies started using short cycles. everyone is talking about iterations now. So if companies before released a product every year, now it's going to be every 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month. So they're going to be generating what we call disruptions in the market. So you have a great product. You're going to release it next week, and then someone releases a product which is better, faster, and nicer than yours, right? And that's going to happen more and more because companies are using short products and creating these disruptions in the market, right? The third one is people are connected, more connected, interconnected, and then you have this kind of intelligence that belongs to people in different parts of the world. Collective intelligence, we call it, right? So we are more creative, we generate more innovation. Artificial intelligence, which is what we have seen. And finally, we have big data. So what's happening here is that all these things are empowering each other and are generating more and more and more disruptions. If you have a surprise in your company once a month, in a few months it's going to be once a week, and then the week after you're going to come back home and you're going to have different kids, right? So every day is going to be different, a different story. And this is going to generate an increase of market disruption. So every time you launch a product, for example, perhaps someone has something similar. Perhaps someone launched a similar product just 2 days before. And that's going to happen once and again and again and again, right? And this is I'm trying to just go from the basics so everyone is on the same page. And this is what we initially believed. It says that from 2015 to 2020, the number of releases with software, as we know, is multiplied by 30 times, right? So I remember when I published the first book for Microsoft in 2002 about .NET. At that point, Microsoft released an update or a patch or whatever they called it every 6 months. Now it's almost every few hours, every day, right? Depends on the bugs. But the most important thing is not this curve. We move from releasing disruptions in software to releasing physical products. So what's happening is software is pushing to a new barrier where physical products are going to be released faster and faster. Which means that, for example, imagine you go to the supermarket today, and then you buy a bottle of milk, and then you go to the supermarket tomorrow, and you find this. A new bottle with a screen, detects how much fat is inside the bottle, and then it tells you until which day you can drink the bottle, right? So software is pushing to the next barrier. We have 3D printing, etc. It's pushing to the next barrier, which is physical products. So perhaps you're going to buy a phone this week, and in a month's time, you're going to have a new release, right? And it's not going to be produced by just humans. It's going to be produced by humans and artificial intelligence. And we started with this story. At the time we started with this story, we started with Agile, and everyone believed that was kind of a silver bullet. It could solve the problem. But people generally forget about this. It mentions software. Agile was just for software. So what the hell are you going to do when you need to tell the rest of the company that you are Agile and they have to be Agile, right? Because the Agile manifesto is fantastic, but it was trying to solve a specific problem, which was release high-quality software with very motivated teams, software team. We're talking about software. So how we deal with the rest of the company? Well, the first thing we have to understand is how change works in the company, right? The way that change works in the company is that we have a reality, and then you help people change, or the organization change, you create a new reality, right? And then what you do is you iterate once and again, and you have managers, agile coaches, and a lot of people. What people do not consider when they do that is that every time you change something in the company, in a modern company, you are also changing the way that people think and the way that people react and how they solve problems, and they take it back home. the first time I met my wife, we have a problem, and I just took some Post-it, and I note down in the Post-its all the problems, and I say, okay, which one is more important for you to solve now? Okay, so these kind of things is what really happen. You are exporting new ideas, new things, you are evolving, and people are importing these things in their private lives. And this is the most important thing you need to consider when this happens. So let me talk about enterprise or business agility. When you talk about Agile, some people take Agile to the rest of the organization, but then it doesn't work very well because some of the ideas from Agile can't be exported to the rest of the company. And when you have a product, you have to assume that you have people from different areas working together, right? People who are not from IT. Do you agree with me that you have people from marketing, product owners, and you have a lot of people? And then someone came up with an idea, and then where you have the product that you need to involve different people with different mindsets. And what happened here? Imagine you take a problem, and you take this problem to someone in the IT area, and you ask that people for a solution. They're going to give you a specific solution. Sometimes you can guess what the solution is going to be. Now you take this problem to the line workers, people just manufacturing the products, and you ask the same question to the same people that they're going to solve in a specific way, right? Which means that when you have this same problem and different mindset, and you have a team that needs to work together, then they're going to have a different approach because they have a different mindset. Everyone has a different mindset, but some of these mindsets, sometimes you can't work together, right? How you do that? That's the first question. Now you have a team that Scrum says that you have to have team which is multifunctional and cross-functional, and how you do that? Everyone has a different background. So I'm going to talk today about the brain, how it works during the transformation, and a little bit of business agility. And business agility is the capacity of increasing agility in the whole organization, not creating a local optimization. Otherwise, if you optimize one area, let me tell you, if you just go to a bank and you just optimize the IT area, with the changing market, you are going to do nothing, because there are going to be banks which are going to be more clever than you, and you have to be the number one, right? That's the first thing. So I'm going to go just for a little bit of theory, quick theory about the brain, very, very quick, so everyone understands what I'm talking about. So at the front of your brain, you have the prefrontal cortex. I love windsurfing. And I was trying to learn a few years ago windsurfing, and at the very beginning was very difficult to me to sit, just to stay on the table, just on the board to keep the balance, etc. Why? Because the front of the brain is trying to learn it. Every time you learn something new, the front of your brain takes the new ideas and try to learn it. The problem with that is that the front of the brain consumes a lot of oxygen. And that's why when you are learning a new task or a new job, the first day you feel very tired. Because the front of the brain is trying to cope with the situation and consumes a lot of oxygen, and you feel very tired, right? Once you learn it, it's moved to your hard drive. It's at the back of the brain, which is called the basal ganglia. It's automated. In fact, I would tell you that 70% of the actions you do during a day and 70–80% the actions you do in a company are totally automated. And there is a specific technique you mentioned in the book. It's called micro-habits to change those habits without forcing people and without increasing resistance, right? Which is called micro-habits. You change something very, very small. Then you automate it. You do it, and it doesn't consume much oxygen, right? Are we okay with this? Okay, so in the middle, we have the amygdala. The amygdala is what we call the smoke detector. This is very, very important. Every time, it's like an alarm bell, and every time something happens, a change or something very dangerous, the amygdala activates, right? And for example, when there is a change in status or prestige in the company, I feel like I'm losing prestige on my role or my position, the amygdala is activated, right? And if things are changing quickly, the amygdala activates again. If I open the door of my place and I see a lion, the amygdala is activating. Yeah? Perhaps I don't know, 10,000 years ago, the amygdala was very useful, right? When there is excessive change or high workload, the amygdala is activated. So what happened when the amygdala activates? Well, it disables what we call the higher brain centers. Higher brain centers are the part you generally use when you are evolving ideas, okay? You become a monkey, a kind of monkey when your amygdala activates, right? And you become very irrational, but you don't know it. And it shuts down the perspective and the analytical reasoning, and then it produces a stress response that it blasts your brain, and it's basically produce a lot of cortisol and other chemicals in your body, which produce you fear, and then this completely disconnect your logical brain, okay? Probably you have some experience in your life, very stressful, and you realize that you were not thinking well, right? Everyone had it when you came back home and you had different kids, a different husband, right? So let me show you an example of when the amygdala is activated. The amygdala, here we have Anna on the right-hand side. She is a manager, very good manager. She's very agile, and she's very happy the company is going in the right direction. And we have Fivo here. He's a developer. He was in charge of also the technical transformation. And then he said, Anna, I have an idea I wanted from next iteration. I have a great idea for you. And Anna said, oh, this guy is great. You know, they know for a long time each other. And for sure it's a great idea. I'm going to say yes. And then she said, what if all managers become servant leaders from next month? What do you think she's going to say? Why? It makes sense, right? They're going to help someone. Well, let me tell you what happens. So servant leaders is taken by your brain as a drop in prestige. And it's one of the highest activation in your brain, in your amygdala, and it produces a lot of fear. And what happened is 110 milliseconds, Anna heard that. And then at that point in time, before you realize that this thought was a good idea, it hijacked by the amygdala. The amygdala disconnected the thinking brain, and then what's going to happen, start adding some thoughts, such as, for example, Anna, you're going to lose your job. You know, this is a very bad idea. Don't do it, you know. And then what happened after 220 milliseconds? We know that because it was finally shown and demonstrated by a doctor last year. 220 milliseconds, the thinking brain reacts and get the information. But at that point, you have a lot of negative thoughts in their brain without Anna knowing. So what Anna is going to say? Well, things are working well in the way they are. Let me increase my help. So she's trying to defend their status quo, right? And this is what happened to people when you are trying to change the organization. In organizations where people do not feel comfortable with change, if we take a blood test, we can see that they have certain hormones in their brain, and they have a high activation of the amygdala, right? Are we okay with this? Can anyone tell me how the time remaining? I have here the time remaining, but I put 45 hours instead of 45 minutes. 90 minutes, okay, we are fine. So my amygdala is still under control. Yeah? So there are some techniques I show you in the books, and I show you also in the books. There are certain techniques in companies where people are very stressed already or do not want to change, right? So let's talk about business agility. In general, people think when we are talking about agility, we're just talking about technical agility, right? But I discovered that this is not enough. They talk about continuous delivery, DevOps, or any change you want to do that. That's a great idea, but you do not change an organization just by changing one area, one particular area. And you can't push the ideas from one area to other areas because people from the other area, what is going to happen with the brains? We're going to increase the resistance, right? Why this guy have to tell me what to do? What the hell this guy think here? This is what the amygdala thinks, right? Not the people. And then technical agility is great. You need technical agility to create great products. But in fact, there is not just one, and this is just my humble opinion, there is not just one type of agility if you want to change an organization, right? This is just one type of agility. It's very good. This is the agility you know, guys. But for enterprise agility, you need something else. The second type of agility is what we call structural agility. The company needs the capacity to be able to change the structures and the procedures in a way that is not going to alter the organizational health, right? An organization is like a living system. If you just do the wrong thing, everything becomes dysfunctional, right? Perhaps one comment or one attitude different than what you said, right? And this is very important. Yes, we can change the processes. We can do whatever we want, but people need to have a high visibility. They need to feel comfortable. They need to feel on board, etc. Otherwise, we step backwards, right? And sometimes we don't even realize it. The third type of agility we have is what we call outcomes agility. I've seen it in many organizations, outcomes agility. You are very agile, people connect very well, but then they're going to release a product and someone releases another product and they are frozen there. They don't move, they don't know what to do, they panic. And they said, we don't know what to do. And for weeks, the organization is very chaotic. So this type of organization means that you are going to continue delivering even if there are very stressful and change on the market. And this is very, very important for a company. We can't stop. We need to get used to change, right? And there are also specific techniques. The idea is that even if you are passing through turbulent times, you are able to continue releasing, right? Then the other kind of agility we have is social agility. Social agility is basically that people connect well and they change the way they connect based on the situation. Let me tell you a story. I was helping an airline in Chile 2 years ago, and with the Boston Consultancy Group. They came from America. They called me and said, Eric, can you help with that? And then I gave some ideas. They have an office in New York, and I don't know if it was because of my suggestion, but I said, listen, the most important in a company is how information flows in the company, right? How people talk to each other, how information goes through one part of the organization to another. So what they did is they were just about opening in a few months a company, a branch in New York, and they did something very interesting. They put a sensor to every person in the organization, and they just detected how people moved around the organization, and they reshaped the office, the layout, they moved the walls, they moved everything in order to make sure that people bump into each other, not physically, right? But cross, and they promote that they had a conversation, and they connect very well, and they see each other, and they could see that someone is talking to someone else, etc. And then with all this information was done by a company called Humanized, they redesigned the whole building based on that. So interactions had to change, and this is very important. But nothing of this is going to happen if we don't have the most important type of agility, which is called mental agility, right? A mental agility, we have seen that when people increase their mental agility, they are able to see a situation from different perspectives. This is what we call reframing. When we do reframing, we ask people to see a problem from a completely different perspective, and sometimes opposite to our beliefs, that generate different neuronal connections in our brain. We increase what we call neuroplasticity, which is how we solve problems. And then we become more flexible and more tolerant to change, right? Does it make sense? Yes? So this is the 5 different kind of agility you need in the organization. How you do that? Well, let me show you just, unfortunately, we don't have a couple of hours, but I'm going to show you some ideas. So what you do is this. You can place these 4 or 5. You know, I didn't place mental agility. I kept it out here. Just I take it something like a more personal, but you can have some ideas also for increasing mental agility in people in your company. So what you do is you basically put, okay, what I want is I want to gain some technical agility. I want to gain some structural agility or whatever. And you put all the ideas. Okay, we could change this. We could change this. We could change this. And all the changes, the little changes you could do related to each kind of agility. And what you do after? What you do after is you do impact and effort and complexity. So from all this list, you just take the easiest one to do. The easiest one which produces higher impact, right? For example, in one company I was helping in the biggest bank in Australia, they found that one team was always blamed for the defect the software had, right? And they saw the same pattern in a financial team. They made a lot of mistakes. What they saw was that this team had a very low quality because they have very high skills, and everyone came to them to ask questions about different things, and they were constantly interrupted. So they were doing something very hard. Someone came and said, okay, listen, Eric, can I ask you a question about this financial thing? All the time. Which is kind of social agility, right? It's very nice to have that, but was an issue. So we changed what we call a micro habit. It's a very tiny habit. We put some traffic light. Every time, we knew that when they made most of the mistakes, they were pairing, working together with one another person. So when someone from the other areas saw these teams, these people working together, they say, oh, there are 2 of them. Let's go and ask all the questions. Yeah? So what we did is something very easy. Every time they work together, in team, in 2 people together, they pair, they put a traffic light red. And then nobody could bother them. Well, they were working in something easy. They just put it in green. That changed, a very small micro habit made the bank save millions, completely changed the behavior of the team. They felt more confident, increased the quality of the software and the financial products, and completely changed the company just by changing one habit, a small habit, right? And then what we did here, we did this impact and effort. Everyone came with ideas. I gave them the idea of doing the traffic lights. And then they say, OK, this is the easy thing to do with the highest impact. We keep it, right? Then we came here. What we should do here? Easy. And we did the same. And then we have a line with the super easy things to do with the highest impact. And we just went for that. And then we tried for a few weeks, and we iterate. Does it make sense? As companies generally have the idea that they need a massive this is not linear relationship. Nowadays, you have a non-linear relationship. A small, very small change can have a huge impact in the company. This is what we are looking for, right? This is very important. Do not think of big changes. Think of the minimum change you can do with the highest impact, right? And this is what we call a powerful plan. Powerful plan is a plan which covers all these areas, and then we have a minimum, it's super easy to do, and then, but not super easy to do in your head. Super easy to do in real life, right? And then for everyone is happy with this, right? But a massive impact. And then I'm gonna give you a challenge now, right? Imagine that you need to increase in your company your social agility. And you need to tell me one very, very small change, very easy to do, that you could do to increase the agility, social agility in your company. So what we're going to do is 2 or 3 of you guys just say hello, yeah? And then we're going to have 2 minutes, 3 minutes to discuss a very tiny habit that you can change in your organization just in order to make a huge impact. Let's practice it. Are you happy with this? Yes? Think of your organization. Think of your blockade. Think if you can change something and read the definition for social agility. Are you ready? Okay, let's go. I'm going to give you 3 minutes. Any question, guys? Do you have any question? Are you happy with this? Yes? And you can't hire anyone. Okay, that's the time. So this is one of the practices I do with Agile coaches all around the world. Try to think in terms of very, very small changes. Change a habit, change something very small. Do not go for something big. It's very important when, I'm going to do this. It's very important that when you go through an Agile transformation, you consider these 5 types of agility. If you don't consider them, you're going to stuck. You're not going to be able to expand Agile to the rest of the organization. You're going to increase the resistance of the rest of the organization. You're going to have many problems. And problems, let me tell you something. There are 2 rules, good rules. The first one is problems get exponential. After you get a problem, you're going to get 100. So don't get them. The second rule is what my brother always said, is the best way to have a problem is not to have it in the first place, right? And I imagine most of you I believe that everyone can change anything in the organization. Just need to know a little bit how the brain works, some techniques, how business agility. We have just a few minutes today, but in the book I discuss it, how to create what I call the powerful plan for the organization. Otherwise, what happens is you're going to just smash your head against a wall, right? And you try to do it, and people do not want to change. Perhaps we should change the approach, right? So I'm going to give you 5 tips before finishing today for business agility. The first one is establish, you heard that before, iteration of feedback loops. And then after you get them in the IT area, for example, expand them to the rest of the organization. So, okay, I'll leave it there just in case you want to take the picture. Yeah. And this is very important. Whatever you do, you need to expand it at some point. Do not leave it. Otherwise, you're going to increase resistance in the rest of the organization. If you are working for a bank or for an insurance company, read my book. That's hard, but you can do it. I did it. In fact, I was working with a bank, the first bank which uses Scrum all across the bank. The whole bank uses a version of Scrum. Functional teams all around the bank. Financial people, people at the branches, etc. The second, as information moves fast, at some point, you are going to need to give less importance to hierarchies and more important to how information flows inside the company. Right? Does it make sense? If information flows in this way, you can't have a company which goes in that way. But be careful when you change the roles in the company. Remember about your brain. Every time you change a role in the company, you need to make sure this person feels that there is more prestige in the next position. Third one, combine the power of humans with artificial intelligence and make sure that they work together, right? Machine learning to satisfy better the client. This is also very important. Fourth one, build a team in your company. Prepare to help people change, right? And make sure that those people in this team have the right knowledge, how the brain works, what happens when you go back home and you have different kids, right? Remember that. This is the last week I was presenting my book in Brazil in Portuguese, and my backpack was stolen during the conference. I lost my passport. I lost my laptop. I lost everything, and I use the same techniques in the book because you can't realize when this kind of thing happens. You can't realize when your amygdala start dropping chemicals into your blood, right? Your heart rate go higher. You feel like, and I use something. It worked very well. I just went to the consulate, got a piece of paper, and left the country. And that's it, right? But this is the same thing that happened with people during change. It's very, very aggressive change, right? So you need to have a team to help people, and these people need some special skills, right? And finally, mental agility, focus on learning, real learning, right? And teach people how they can gain some mental flexibility. There are some techniques I grabbed from psychology called reframing, and I adapted to be used in the company for people to be more flexible. To be honest, if you ask yourself, you know in which area you are flexible, and you know, you don't have to tell anyone, but you know, so you can become more efficient at reframing problems, right? And what we have seen today, exponential change is affecting everything we do. It's affecting people in a way that we have never seen before. It's affecting how our brains work. The law of accelerating returns is that you move a process to a computer and that's going to go faster and faster. We haven't seen this one. We have done the 6 Ds of disruption, but for the one getting the book, or you can find it on the internet. The 6 Ds of disruption is how the digital products evolve. And finally, the different types of change, right? And I think we don't have time for questions, but what I propose is I'm going to be here the whole day. You just come. If you're a coach or you want to change someone, you just come and ask me, and I try to help you. Right? And if it doesn't work, I'm going to be happy to get an email from you in a few months' time. Okay? Thank you very much, guys. Thank you for coming today.